Well, America's 250th birthday is approaching, but are we really celebrating? There's a lot to talk about. We've got a special guest tonight. The stake starts now.
I always
right. The theme song is a bop, as they say. Shout out to my husband who designed our opening early on. So thank you, hun, for finding that bop and making our opening folks like it. Well, welcome everybody. We are approaching the 4th of July. I can't believe it's July already. I don't know where half this year has gone. It's just been nuts.
Flying
nonstop.
by.
It's flying by. It's nuts. It's a nonstop, just nutso political cycle every freaking week. It's too much. It's too much. Sometimes it's too much. I just got back from New York. I was on CNN last night. And
you wagged your finger last night, Tara. You wagged your finger.
Listen.
I'm so sorry I haven't posted the clip, everyone, yet, but I did put a link to it on X, so you can go watch it until I get it up. But
yeah, I cut the clip real quick just to throw it up there on X because apparently it got some traction. Mediaite and the Daily Mail and a lot of people wrote about how I went off on this stupid guest on Abby Phillips' show. I've had my run-ins with her before. This Lydia Moynihan from the New York Post, who just is so outclassed. Like she has no business being on these panels with us. And I had enough of her. And so, yeah, I called her sweetheart and said what she was saying was bullshit.
Second best to stay on topic.
stay on topic. Let's talk about this right now. Like how
about on topic.
Follow along. So anyway, but yeah, so there's a lot going on. But we have a really great guest tonight, and I'm excited because this is one of those Democrats who is he's so insightful and thoughtful and has really done and has an amazing career. And he happens to be from Mallory's home state of Alabama.
The great state of Alabama.
Yes, we're finally giving some love to the South on the show tonight because it's always so Jersey and New York centric because, obviously a point of personal privilege. But tonight we are giving some love to the South, and we're going to bring in, without further ado, we're going to talk about a bunch of things because there's just so much happening in the news right now. But because former Senator Doug Jones, who is now running for governor of Alabama, he also has a background as a federal prosecutor. And so given the birthright citizenship decision this week and just what Trump is trying to do to our election rights and just a lot of other things going on, I think he's a great voice to talk to about the things that we care about here.
Just roll out the parchment paper of all the things we could be discussing.
I know. So without further ado, Mallory, let's bring in Mr. Doug Jones.
Hey, guys.
Oh.
Welcome.
Oh, it's great to be with you, and I'm especially glad to be with you, Tara. Okay, I mean, I'm going to wag my finger in a good way.
Did you see the segment? Or are you just listening to what Mallory told you? I did do this.
Segment, I'll be honest with you, but I was listening, so it must have been really good.
Well, you know what? It's actually a good segue into our first discussion topic because I was very animated about the birthright citizenship 14th Amendment discussion. And the MAGA panelist was talking about birth tourism and Chinese agents sending people over here to have babies in large numbers. And she cited this bogus statistic and Abby Phillip challenged her on the statistic. But I also worked when I was a congressional staffer for a Republican. I was a hawk on immigration and border security, and birth tourism is an issue. It is something that we should get under control, but it's also illegal. So it's about enforcement, not about trying to change the Constitution to erase 100 years of precedent here on what the 14th Amendment means. And so it was just such nonsense. So she kept going on and on about, well, why shouldn't we be concerned? And I finally had enough of her. It's not the first time, Mallory knows. It's not the first time. And I just said to her, I'm like, if that was such an issue, if this whole thing about, the Chinese sending secret agents over here to have babies to infiltrate our country, then how come that wasn't the list of reasons that the Trump lackeys have been giving for what the next step should be? And I'm sure you've seen this. And for those who are watching now, we didn't have time to put this together, but there is a compilation of the all full frontal attack from Stephen Miller to Mike Davis to, the Fox News jerk offs, all of these guys talking about we should ban pregnant women from coming into the country. Ban foreign pregnant women. And I said to her, if it was about the Chinese communist agents, and how come that's the reason? How come they're not giving that reason? No, they're going after women and people of color from countries they don't like. So that's the jumping off point. I want to talk to you because of your history as a federal prosecutor and your experience with civil rights. You know a thing or two about this. What was your reaction to the birthright citizenship decision that came down this week?
Well, on the one hand, I thought that ultimately it was the right decision. I mean, the Constitution is pretty clear. It was the right decision. It was the exact wording of the Constitution, but there were only 5 people that actually held it under the Constitution. So on the one hand, I thought, dang, this should not be this close. But then I realized who else is on the Supreme Court and thought, okay, well, at least they got overridden this time. But it was absolutely the right call. What bothered me about the decision was Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence, because he did not base his concurrence on the Constitution and the plain wording of the Constitution. He based it on a statute that he said the executive order violates a statute that could be corrected through legislative action. So that's just like, putting a Molotov cocktail in the middle of the argument now. So now it is throwing back to Congress not to do a constitutional amendment with the 14th Amendment, which they could never, ever get done.
Right.
Yeah.
Now they've thrown it in there that you're going to see all of this legislation to do away with things, to do this, to make these exceptions, to do all this crazy stuff. So this is not going away. Not anytime soon, at least for the next couple of 3 years, as long as Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are in the White House. And that's unfortunate, because the Supreme Court of the United States could have and should have had the ability to just stop this in its tracks and say, this is done. And they did not do that. And they've just created more problems, I think, for the future. Again, not because I think that a court will overturn it, because I don't see Justice Roberts or Justice Barrett leaving the court anytime soon. And I don't see any of the other 3 justices leaving the court anytime soon. So it's still a 5-4 decision, essentially, on the 14th Amendment. But you just never know with the makeup of this court. You never know. Hell, Tara, we had just 2-3 years ago, we had a decision that upheld the Alabama congressional maps, that rejected the Alabama congressional maps because he said the Alabama legislature intentionally drew those lines to discriminate against Black folks in Alabama. And just 3 years later, the same Supreme Court says, it's okay. You can go ahead and use them after all, even though the 3-judge panel said that. So you just never know with this court how things are going to go, because I do believe so much is being driven by outcome driven rather than law driven, constitutional law, legislative law. I just think that by and large, a lot of the folks in that court right now are saying, how do we want this to end up? Let's figure out a way to contort ourselves to get there. And that is so, as a lawyer who has practiced law for 40-something years, I'm a member of that court. I did, I helped Justice Jackson get on that court. That just really strikes at my heart to see the court with that kind of reputation.
Well, and one of the things that's interesting to me about kicking it over to Congress is not interesting, but glaring, is that this is just yet another example of how little Trump and this administration and Republicans, honestly, at this point, care about doing things that actually matter to the American people. We're talking about people who can't afford gas right now, who are going to the grocery store and having to make tough choices for their families. And the thought that now we're going to go down this road when we have so many issues that Americans are facing, housing, we were talking about, their inability to pass the bipartisan housing act, it's just another example of how little they care about
Americans. They passed it, Mal. They passed it. Just Trump refuses to sign it.
Well, no, that's what I mean. I'm sorry. Just like, I was like, wait, did I miss something? No.
No, much to the chagrin of a lot of Republicans too, who know that this is good for them. But yes.
Yeah, just another example.
Although Tommy Tuberville, who is my opponent in the governor's race, is one of 5 senators who did not vote on that housing bill, said it was a blank check for illegals. I mean, the absurdity is just crazy. But Mallory, you're absolutely right that that's the problem with this decision, that just that one concurrence by Justice Kavanaugh is going to keep this churning and give people the excuse to not tell the truth, to get things out there that are totally bogus. And that is going to be a problem because too many people believe this stuff. When I was in the Senate, I went over one time to the White House. The president asked Joe Manchin and I to come over, and Stephen Miller ran out and met with us. And he started talking about immigration. This was in 2018. And he was trying to tell me, Tara, then, that that all of this illegal immigration is blocking the African Americans in your state from getting jobs. And I'm going, what do you think I'm a fool? I mean, I know my state and I know the law and I know what's going on out there, but that's the kind of just complete rhetoric that we see that's wrong. And I don't think that people really fully appreciate, Tara, what you said, and that is the fact that this is also a continued attack on women. And that is a real problem. But that at the heart of this, it is women that they're trying to stop from coming into this country. It is women's rights that they've been attacking and had the war on for so long.
Yeah, it's the combination of both, which is why I was so animated on CNN last night, because it was another woman. I mean, I often say this, that cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug. And I'm like, that's why I actually called her sweetheart because my mouth is a little saucy. I am from Jersey. So I could say whatever I want really on cable news, but I had to refrain from what I would normally say. So sweetheart is what I used as the euphemism at the time. But I was looking at her thinking to myself, you dumbass, like, you understand that you are arguing against your own interests. You think that they're not going to come for you too. Like, do you honestly think like whose bidding are you doing that you think that this is going to end well for you too? Because they don't care. Yes, it's easy to go after people of color. It's easy to go after immigrants and demonize them. But the undercurrent of their misogyny and how much they hate women, they only look at us as birthing vessels and only certain kinds of women. I mean, Sean Davis of Real Clear Politics suggested sterilization. These are things that I don't think the American people fully appreciate how extreme the people who are making the decisions for this in this government are right now. They have no idea, which is why I, was like apoplectic about just the red herring of going on about this, like, stop with the Chinese thing now. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's a bunch of bullshit. And I actually said it. I actually said that was the headline, but it was true. I'm like, this is really about the misogyny, and it's about the xenophobia, and it's about the fact that these guys want the country. They want to sanitize this country because they are threatened by the fact that the country is diverse. And so, coming from Jersey, the racial dynamics are a little bit different for me growing up than coming from Alabama. But ultimately, these ugly truths are starting to rise up again and be given a platform and mainstreamed because of what Donald Trump has fostered back into this country. I mean, they're platforming the Confederacy, for God's sakes, at this America 250.
I made the comment the other day after the Calais decision in the Alabama legislature. The governor put us in a special session, cost a couple, $400,000 to call it special session. They reaffirmed the congressional lines, and I said that the governor and the legislature have now thrown us back into the old Confederacy. There's no doubt about that. And people, what we're trying to do some in Alabama is to connect some dots here, to make sure that folks do understand that these rights are being taken away, and who knows where they're going to go next. And when we're talking about women, I try to remind folks, people think, for instance, Mallory, that in Alabama, the abortion issue is settled because we have a statute. And to some extent, that piece of it is. But look what happened in Texas just within the last 2 weeks. The Republican Party in Texas has put in their platform to eliminate IVF, and they're going after contraception. And so
which we predicted. We predicted that here at the Seneca Project.
That is the next step. And so what we're doing down here is trying to make sure folks know that, yes, you may think this is settled, but it is never settled. And look what happened in Texas. And as soon as people like Tuberville get into office, that's exactly what they're going to push through and try to get with this Alabama legislature. So I really do believe that folks are seeing now, and they're getting unsettled because they are connecting all of these dots with everything that's going on. This is not just about illegal immigration anymore. This is a much, much bigger picture that is incredibly unsettling. And it's so sad that it is all happening right here when we should be in one of the most incredible celebrations of this country. It's still the greatest country on the face of the earth, has been since it was founded. And all of this chaos that we're seeing right now, and the destruction and the vandalism that's going on in Washington, D.C., not at the reflective pool, but at the White House, tearing down tearing down the East Wing, and just the general destruction that we see at the Kennedy Center and everything else. It's really, I think he said it best, are we all celebrating together?
Right.
I hope at the end of the day, come Saturday, we'll just take a few deep breaths and thank God for the blessings that we have in this country, because we still have a lot.
We do. One thing we were just talking about is the concept that so many people vote against their own interests. And that spans many different demographics and socioeconomic statuses. But I have noticed in Alabama in particular that a lot of white women, to be specific, are waking up to this conversation around IVF and contraception. And a lot of people who previously voted for Trump, maybe even Tuberville, are starting to realize that perhaps their vote had some real consequences.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely curious, because I didn't ask you this when I saw you last week, is, have you had conversations with some women who maybe were voting Republican and have since seen the light? What are those things? What are those interactions looking like for you?
Mallory, there are people that approach Louise and I all the time, primarily women. Not entirely. I mean, we've been approached by farmers and others that we would not have anticipated, 3 or 4 years ago, approaching us about the support they have for us. But I never ask them. They never come up to me and say, hey, I voted for Donald Trump and I just can't take it anymore. We're getting calls into the campaign office from people that are saying that. We see it some on social media and things. But the people that approach us, there are certain folks that come and you just kind of feel like that, yeah, I've voted this way in the past for a lot of reasons, because it's the way we were supposed to vote. It's the way I was taught to vote. And look, we have to admit that Democrats have not done a great job of selling ourselves to mainstream America sometimes.
Well, you don't have to convince Tara.
No,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
we know.
But we never ask. But you just know that folks are coming up and they're saying, because they're never saying, hey, I've voted for you 100 times or whatever. They're just saying, I am so supportive. Thank you for running. Thank you for what you're doing. And you just get the sense that people are seeing and they're concerned, and they want to protect their families. They want to protect themselves. And no, they don't see anybody in Montgomery doing it, and they dang sure don't see anybody in Washington, D.C. doing it right now.
Well, speaking of Montgomery, shout out to Montgomery, Alabama. My good friend Steve Reed is the mayor of Montgomery, and he was the first Black mayor to ever be elected in that city. And it's crazy that it took until 2019
Right.
for that to happen. But shout out, and I've been down there. That's the only time. Actually, I've been to Alabama twice. I was there, and then also in college, I was visiting an old college boyfriend who was stationed at Fort McClellan.
Yeah.
That's
In
closed
Anniston,
now.
out
Yes, in
there,
Anniston. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I took a bus from Atlanta. I flew into Atlanta and took a bus from Atlanta to Anniston. And I was only 19 years old at the time. And I have to tell you that that was a culture shock and a half for me. As a 19-year-old Jersey girl, it was a culture shock. But Montgomery's lovely. And I encourage anyone who's in the area, or if you're ever going there, to please go to the memorial there. I mean,
EJI Memorial. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
the lynching memorial is one of the most powerful exhibits I've ever seen in my life, and I think it should be like a required field trip for everyone. But
Yeah, and you know, Tara, I don't know, you know, that lynching memorial with all the the hanging monuments things are just literally will take your breath away.
yes,
And now the new museum that has been opened up in an old cotton warehouse where slaves would put the cotton on ships and other things to be distributed. That museum piece is also a must see. It is, Brian Stevenson has just done an incredible, amazing job of curating that museum. And it truly is one of those things that I think everybody should come see, because it will certainly, you will walk out of that and think to yourself, all right, I get it. I get it why we had to have a Voting Rights Act. I get it why we now have to try to figure out ways to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table, because it's just absolutely stunning. So yep, and Stephen is doing a good job with a lot of things. He's had a rough time with some of the issues, but they are improving so many of their public safety things in Montgomery. I'm really proud of the way he is doing that. And I would encourage everybody to come down, come to Montgomery, come to Birmingham, come to Mobile, come to Huntsville, come to Anniston.
Yeah.
Anniston now even has their own memorial and to the Freedom Riders whose bus was burned right outside Anniston. So we have really come a long way of acknowledging and celebrating not a good role, but we're at least acknowledging that Alabama has moved in such a great direction. And doggone it, Mallory, you and I, we're not going to let people take us back.
For sure. I think Alabama is so underrated. You know, I understand people hear about our politics and often go like, I don't know, but it's a beautiful state. It's one of the most biodiverse states across the country. We've got tremendous history, not to be celebrated, but to be understood. And we've got beautiful beaches, which we don't normally talk about because we don't want people to come ruin them. But there's a lot of reason to come here. And before we let you go, Doug, you mentioned you understand why you have to have a seat at the table, and you've talked about having a crowded table, filling your table with folks. Tell us a little bit about the change ticket and the future for what you hope to see for Democrats in Alabama.
Well, I think that this is a change election. People talk about blue waves and things like that. I don't think it's a blue wave. I think it's a change wave. I think we're seeing that even some within the Democratic Party a lot, but we're certainly seeing it across the country. And I think we're feeling it in Alabama. We're giving people choices now, and we've got folks in every constitutional office that are great candidates. And we're running to make sure that folks in Alabama have a voice in their government, because right now, I guarantee you that 60, 70% of the people of Alabama do not believe they really have a voice. They elect people every year, but they go down there and they don't come back to their constituents and talk about them. We're going to add a lot of transparency. We're going to do the things that people really want. And we're going to talk about those issues of affordability. We're going to talk about their power bills. We're going to talk about health care, which is still a huge issue in Alabama, with Medicaid expansion, closing of rural hospitals, those kind of things. We are incredibly excited about the people that are running with me. We're excited about the possibilities that we've got here. And if you look, and the reason we talk as much as anything, of course, my history is kind of that crowded table. I've done that. I have always worked toward that. The other side, all they're talking is name calling. They don't want to include people. They want to exclude people. Hell, everything to them is a football game. It is all winners versus losers. And your healthcare is not a game. Your education is not a game. The economy of the state's not a game. So we really look at the highwomen and their song "Crowded Table." And I want a house with a crowded table where there's a place by the fire for everyone. And everybody's got a voice. Everybody belongs. And that is the way we're approaching this. And it is getting tremendous response. And I am so proud. And Mallory, you and I talked about this. We had such an incredible turnout in the May 19th primary for this ticket for change that we're putting up versus the other side that is divisive and ugly. That's what's going to carry us to victory in November.
And just has to have a gun in every campaign ad. Our television ads are just like guns.
Listen, as you were talking, Doug, I was thinking, I'm like, I really hope you're making that campaign ad to turn it around on Tommy Tuberville, because I mean, I don't, you have to be pretty smart to coach football. And so I don't know how he was successful at that, because he's not a smart guy, but take his biggest strength and turn it around on him. You know, in Alabama, sure, we all love our football and, you know, we love our sports, and we're proud of our athletes. However, what's happening in your everyday life is not a game.
It's not
what
a
you
game.
just said. So I hope if you need anyone to make that ad, let us know.
All right.
Because I'm like, that would be a great ad. You always take their biggest strength and you turn it around on them. Yeah. And you know, it's people. I'm glad to see that you are doing this change ticket, because doing it as a ticket also helps with messaging with people. It's easier for people to understand that they're getting kind of a package deal here. As a messaging and content organization, we can appreciate that, because it's nice and easy to digest, and that's how you reach people, because it's real.
That's right.
Well, Doug, can you tell everybody how long it's been since we've had someone on the Democratic ticket in every constitutional office?
You know, look, I spent the first 2 months of the campaign. I got into this late because I did not see anyone really building. There were 3 or 4 people running for governor, but they really weren't building. They'd run before, and they're nice people. But I didn't see anybody building what I thought was something that the opportunity that we had out here. And so I spent the first 2 months just kind of recruiting folks to run for lieutenant governor, to run for attorney general, to run for secretary of state and treasurer and agriculture commissioner and our auditor. And that has paid off. And this is literally, Tara, the first time since 2006 that Democrats have fielded a candidate in all 7 of our constitutional offices. All 7 great candidates, the first time in 20 years. And that, when people look at the history, and we're running a lot against history and expectations about our ability to win, but we've done that to ourselves. And we are changing that dynamic now. We're giving people choices, and people are excited. Whenever I go, and Mallory, you will appreciate this, wherever I go and I'm speaking to groups, when I give that statistic that this is the first time in 20 years, that is one of the biggest applause lines I ever get.
Yeah.
Because people want that opportunity to vote and to have those choices. And it's really important.
You know, it's similar because the demographics are changing in the South. And over the last 20 years, you've seen a lot of people move into southern states. That's why Georgia's purple now. That's why, you know, with Huntsville and what's happening with your economy down there, in Alabama, you have people that are coming in that are bringing a different type of politics. And so the fact that you have that opportunity to compete is a testament to what happens when people start moving around and demographics change. And Florida is the same thing. Republicans, they weren't winning in Florida for a long time. And then they saw, okay, it's going to be a multi-decade operation to build it up, but we have to compete. And now look at what they've got in Florida. And the Democrats kind of were on their heels for years in Florida while the Republicans were doing this. They may have lost a couple of elections, but every time they closed the gap until they overtook them. And so now you're starting to see, even in Florida, the Democrats starting to rebuild and get their act together in Florida to compete as well, because again, it goes back to politics changing, and people don't change until they pay enough of a price. So when they start to realize that the policies that they're voting for are actually hurting them, people start to think, well, give me an alternative. And so that's exactly what you guys are doing there. So I love it.
And Tara, you mentioned the changing demographics, and we've been really putting some numbers and analyzing that primary vote, because there were double the number. For folks that are listening, we're an open primary state. We're not a registration state. So you go up and ask for a ballot, Democrat or Republican. And we doubled the number of Democratic ballots from just 4 years ago. And Republicans were down. And in our analysis, we estimate there were 60 to 70,000 people that voted in the Democratic primary that had never voted in the Democratic primary before. And this wasn't some weird thing where they're coming voting against the least popular or the weakest candidate, because the two strongest candidates won that, me and Phil Lenzler. And so I think that's part of that demographic shift and people that are coming in. And I think it's also some disaffected independents that have been voting Republican for a long time. So we are so encouraged by those numbers going into the fall. We see an incredible excitement out there that we do not see on the other side.
Yeah.
We have you for just a couple more minutes. I want to ask you another question, because I know people are very concerned, speaking of voting, about the midterms. And we're watching what this administration is doing. The news this week is, again, really alarming. It's not like we all don't already know that Donald Trump is coming for the midterms. Once again, we predicted this a year ago, but he's really making moves here that are alarming on a lot of levels. And the fact that he got rid of Pam Bondi, got rid of Gabbard, he's put in these lackeys, these henchmen in Todd Blanche and Bill Pulte in positions that can really, really impact the elections in November. But it also, people need to remember, though, they have to go through the states, and they're very frustrated by that. So governors play a very important role here in being that firewall from a crazy federal government, unless Trump declares a national emergency, which, again, I don't put it past them. Who the hell knows what they're going to do? But as someone who is running for governor, who understands the laws and has experience, especially with voting rights and civil rights, what do you say to people about to reassure them, or what can they do? What should they be paying attention to heading into the midterms to make sure that the elections are secure and our votes are going to count?
I tell them, number one, do not be deterred. Be encouraged. Be aggressive. Make sure you get out there. I don't care how long you have to stand in line. Make sure you get out there and vote, because the best deterrence for any shenanigans is a big voter turnout and a big margin. Okay. That's what we've got to do in so many of these states, so that the things that might happen cannot happen. That said, what I worry about are the things that I worry about, made up stuff that's ahead of these elections, declaring a state of emergency because of some event. Hell, even Tucker Carlson has been warning his viewers that he is concerned that this administration is going to have a false flag kind of event in order to manufacture some type of emergency that will allow the president to call an emergency. I'm sorry, my light fell off.
It's okay.
That could take over some of the elections. And I do worry about that. And this is kind of spooky the way me talking about this right now, I guess, right? But
Those tales of the future midterms.
I think we need to be talking about it, because I have said for a long time, people, this today, I was listening to MSNBC or one of the others, I can't remember, But they were talking about, well, the president suddenly doesn't seem to care about the midterms. He's making money, $2 billion in crypto. He doesn't seem to care whether he wins or loses. My worry is not that he's making money. He's saying, I got this. I don't have to worry about the voters. I don't have to worry about the votes. We got this, and we're going to make sure that we win regardless. So now I'm going to try to put my light back on as we wind up here and not look like the crypt keeper or something.
No. Well, considering the subject matter right now, it was a little apropos.
Yeah,
it was a pretty dark subject matter.
It was. We got dark real fast. Well, do you think that the governors should call like the National Governors Association or something in a bipartisan way should stand in solidarity to ensure that the federal government doesn't come in and try to mess with their elections? Like, I
100%.
think something like that should happen.
100%. If that could happen, I mean, you've got the National Governors Association, but then you've also got the Republican Governors Association,
right,
and the Democratic Governors Association. Now, if there could be a bipartisan show of support, and I think you could get that with some of the Republican governors, to say we are going to stand together to ensure that we have free and fair elections. And we're going to make sure that this happens across the board. We have the authority to make it happen. I think that would send a huge message. I think it would be a very important thing to do. I hope that those discussions are taking place because if they're not, you can count on the fact that when I get elected, that next year, I'll start having those discussions looking toward 2028 because it will happen again. It will be just as big a concern. And the good thing, Mallory, in Alabama is if we can get me and Violet Edwards, who's running for auditor, and Ron Sparks, who's running for ag commissioner, it is the governor, the ag commissioner, and the auditor in Alabama that appoints the head of the board of registrars in every county in this state. So we're going to protect the voters in Alabama for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I just want to highlight, one of the things that Tara and I talk about a lot is we're very frustrated by Democrats who take their ball and go home. Who after the election cycle, and this is not just people who run. I totally understand when people who run are like, that was a lot.
Yeah, I need a minute. Yeah.
That was a lot. I'm going to take a minute. But just in the entirety of it all, donors, organizers, people just kind of take their ball, go home, and then they come out 7 months before an election and they're like, all right, what are we doing? And I just want to thank you and also point out to everyone watching that that's not the kind of Democrat that you are.
Thank you.
You have been working, as long as I've known you, behind the scenes, always looking for a way to build better infrastructure here, putting time and energy and money and resources toward doing that, toward advancing our party, toward bringing people into the fold, trying to eliminate some of the conflict that we've experienced in Alabama. And it's not easy. And I thank you for that. And I want people to know that because you're not always at the forefront of those conversations. You're not in the news touting all the work that you're doing behind the scenes. And I just want people to understand, especially if they're thinking about supporting your campaign, that you have been on the field playing ball in the arena this entire time, even though you weren't holding public office. And so I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. The way I look at it is that we've been making the plans, that we've been quietly gathering all of the equipment so that we can build that crowded table, and we've started to build it.
Yeah.
Well, on in your parting words, it is America's 250th birthday. July 4th is on Saturday. Usually, folks are super patriotic and it's all like, everybody's excited. I know for me, it's been a struggle this year, admittedly. And as someone who 4th of July is like Christmas in July for me and my family, and my family has a rich history with July 4th. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. He was a police officer in my hometown for 40 years of fireman for 71. He marched in every parade from 1947 until he passed in 2016. I mention this often. So like 4th of July and celebrating America and all of that is something that's like really near and dear to me and my family and those traditions. And this year, I live in the DC area. My husband and I usually do a big thing and we have a whole big fireworks thing. And this year, it has just really been a struggle because of what Donald Trump has done and just taken over this America 250 celebration and making it all about him. And but when I start to go down that road, I bring myself back because you know what? Being, lamenting or grieving something that your country is losing is also a form of patriotism. And my mom sent me an article, someone wrote that, and I thought that was really profound. And that you can celebrate, but you don't have to be a patriot to celebrate without conscience. And I think that that's like what we just saw with that hero, that Air Force, active duty Air Force guy that got arrested for protesting. I get it. You're not allowed to speak out against it, but that guy's a hero. And that was like a perfect example of that. So what do you say to people? How are you approaching this year? And like, what do you say to people who are kind of stuck the way I am a little bit, where you're like, oh, I'm like, what am I celebrating? But then it's like, damn it, you're not going to take my patriotism from me. It's a push and pull.
I tell people that to think about this country and to think about the freedoms, think about the people that have made the sacrifices, the ultimate sacrifices for the freedoms in this country. And remember that it took a long time for women to get the vote in this country. It took a long time.
Oh, we know. That's the Seneca Project.
The vote. And people have made these sacrifices, and that's what should spur people on. So this should not just be a time of celebration. It should be a time of recommitment, because we see this, and every time you see those fireworks, every time you see the American flag, it should stir something inside you to recommit yourself to do the right thing. One of my political heroes, who I hesitate to give the name because his son now has gone crazy, but one of my political heroes once said, we all wish we lived in more tranquil times, but we don't. But if our times are difficult and perplexing, so too are they filled with opportunity. And that is the thing that we've got to look. They're challenging and filled with opportunity. And so if we recommit ourselves, the opportunities that are in front of us are to make sure that we can make this America, and we can do the things that the founder said to make that more perfect union, which is always a work in progress. But that's what I look at as a not just a celebration, but as a recommitment.
Love that. I think that's fantastic. And we will, I think as we move forward and look at how we're fighting in these midterms, the idea of recommitment, I think, is a really good one. And I know I see some of the comments, other folks that struck a chord. So that's great. See, that's why I knew if I gave you the floor, Doug Jones, you're gonna leave us with some words of encouragement. And I suspect that political hero, his last name started with a K.
Yeah, that would be him.
Doug Jones, former senator, former federal prosecutor, all around great guy, next governor of Alabama. If Mallory and her fellow Alabamans have anything to say about it, we hope to have you back in the fall, where we can, as we get a little closer to the election, and have you back. And because we just enjoy talking to you.
Love to do it. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Thanks, you, Doug.
Love Doug.
He's such a good guy. He's such a good guy.
Truly.
He is. And
you know what? He just took you to church just for a minute.
Yes.
I saw you. You were like, all right.
Yeah, no, I knew it. I was like, let me let him close this out, this conversation out on a high note, because his life experience is so interesting. And for people who don't know, he prosecuted one of the bombers, right, of the 1963 church bombing down there. And so his career has been about fighting for what's right and trying to right those wrongs. And so so that when Mallory says, he's not like some of the typical Democrats, he's not in that way. He's not afraid. He doesn't back down from a fight and taking on the hard things and doing the right thing. If we had a lot more Doug Jones in the Democratic Party, would be in a different place.
Yeah, well, and I think also what's important, especially if people are considering looking him up and supporting the campaign, which I really hope you are. He was one of the most bipartisan senators. Like he's a logical legislator.
Yeah, he's pragmatic.
And he's pragmatic, and he knows how to work with people, and that's what we need. We need a governor who knows how to bring people back together in this state. We have been dealing with such crazy insanity. And the crazy things that Tommy Tuberville says, and the way he's attacked, the Muslim community, the ways he's attacked immigrants, the way he doesn't even live here,
right?
Just
he lives in Florida, folks.
God,
Tommy Tuberville lives in Florida.
He lives in Florida. But one thing that I should mention is we were able to do an interview with him. That's why we were referencing last week on our podcast, Pretty Furious, and we asked him about the women in his life who guide him, and whose voice does he hear. And if you feel so inclined, go listen to that episode, because the amount of women who surround Doug, he has a daughter and a wife, obviously, but his mother, his aunts, he really is not just an old white man Democrat, he is surrounded by women, and I think he truly understands the issues at hand, especially regarding, as he mentioned, IVF and contraception, and that's important to me, living in this state.
Absolutely. And there's a through line here, because the best politicians, the best public servants usually have a strong cadre of women around them that influenced their perspective on things. And so and I think that's what gives them the ability to empathize and to see things through a different lens, because they lived it, and they're surrounded by people that loved them and nurtured them, and they can see their experience through their eyes, and that makes them a better public servant. It just does. So
better human. So much of what's missing and everything that we're dealing with is the ability to see the world through the lens of someone else.
Indeed.
Have compassion and empathy and go, that might not be my experience, but I see it happening. That makes it real.
That's right.
I think there are so many people who don't see what's happening or don't want to believe it because it's not happening to them. And that's right. Yeah. Good to know Doug's got a lot of women in his brain. That's what he said. He's like, I got a lot of voices in my head.
Good voices, not the kind of voice. Yeah, good voices.
Yeah, we joked about that.
Oh my God. Funny. Well, before we go tonight, we were just I'm still laughing about this America 250 fail that's happening here in DC. And I knew that the crowds would get a little bit bigger as 4th of July approached. Obviously, people work during the week and it's on a weekend. But I got to tell you, this thing has been an absolute disaster, because not only am I watching it from the way that the national media is covering it, but locally, like the local media is there and they're interviewing people on the mall. I took the train back from New York today and came through Union Station and saw a bunch of people. There's actually a really cool Ford exhibit in Union Station celebrating America 250. But just so people remember, there's two different things here. There's America 250, which is the actual bipartisan committee that was set up to throw the birthday party. And they were allocated $120 million or $100 million or something. It's bipartisan 10 years ago. Donald Trump came in and hijacked it, created Freedom 250, which is a total money laundering, grifting disaster, shocker. And that's what's putting on all the other stuff, the fair and the Christian nationalist rally they had a couple weeks ago, the concert that people backed out of. There's reports today about how they think that there's a bunch of Democrats that are demanding to see to get an audit to see where this money is going, because there are donors that are saying, wait, whoa, we were duped. We thought we were giving money to America 250 and it was rerouted to Freedom 250. That's illegal. There's also reports from that committee that they were soliciting foreign donations into this thing. Like it's an absolute mess. It's an absolute mess. Donald Trump's old campaign manager, Brad Parscale, remember him? That guy who made tens of millions of dollars. He was like a website designer for Trump and then turned into this mega like consultant for him and raked in $90 million during the campaign. Oh yeah. And then he went away for a little
You're
while.
a website designer and suddenly you're making $90 million.
Yes.
From my mouth to God's ears.
I mean, if only, right? I mean, we're clearly doing something wrong here. And now he's back on the scene and they're producing some of these events. And today Aaron Parnas posted the video. It's all over the place that the freaking stage was falling apart while people were practicing, right? The dancers were rehearsing and a freaking part of the stage came falling down. Thank God nobody got hurt. This thing is a disaster. The air conditioning isn't working in some of the exhibits. There's money that's going toward Prager University. PragerU is a total propaganda, right-wing wacko operation along with Hillsdale College. They are completely rewriting history, revisionist history. They are not talking about anything other than like white Christian men, and they're getting money for this thing. They have these freedom trucks that are driving around that are just like showing very small parts of American history, not telling the full story. Like and pushing a Christian agenda. Like it's a mess. And it's also going to be 110 degrees. No lie, 110 degrees in Washington on Saturday. And Donald Trump is not going to let the fireworks go off until like 11 o'clock at night because he's doing a rally. That's insane. 11 o'clock, like, come on, dude. Like, he's just ruining it. So we're not going to do
it. Welcome to Firefest 2.0.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. I heard someone on CNN say that it is the DC version of Firefest.
Yes.
And I just hope people like don't get really ill. People were already passing out on the mall today, and it's not even the hottest day.
It's really hot outside.
Yeah, and DC it's a swamp, so it's hot and humid. Like they haven't seen. This is going to be potentially the hottest 4th of July on record, and they're not letting people bring in water. They can't bring lawn chairs. They can't bring coolers. They can't bring can't bring anything with you.
You're going to be standing around dehydrated unless you spend. It's probably going to be like a $12 water bottle.
No, it's true. They were already talking about they're like $20 pretzels and like ridiculous amounts of money, and it's just wrong. The whole thing is just wrong. And so we're going to have our own little 4th of July celebration at our house. We decided, and we're going to put up our portable screen that we travel with and watch the fireworks, the New York fireworks, because they're going to be fantastic. Because
they're so amazing.
They are always amazing, and they're going to have the tall ships and all of that in New York. So we're going to watch. Well, after the Capitol 4th, which we always watch, it usually goes right in with no problems into the beautiful DC fireworks, and then the fireworks from DC go into the New York fireworks. So that's all fucked up this year. Yeah. So Capitol 4th, then we'll watch the New York fireworks, and then I'm not watching the DC fireworks. I'm in protest.
I don't blame you. Plus, it'll be very late.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be up. I'm not 8, but at the same time,
I will definitely not be, and that's 10 o'clock my time.
You have a baby.
I know, but even still, man, I used to be a person who like didn't go to bed before 2 a.m. and now
me too.
I'm like 2 a.m. if I'm awake, it's because I don't know.
Me too. I'm a little tired today because I was on air last night. We were done at 11. I ended up getting a drink at the hotel bar, Pendry, and made friends with the bartender because
naturally.
It was kind of a funny thing. Yeah, it was kind of a funny thing because there were these two guys next to me who were on a date, and they were talking about wine. And I was listening to them have this wine conversation. And for those who know me and who followed me for a long time know that my husband and I are like wine snobs now. And that really became like, it was a COVID thing because we couldn't do anything but go to wineries during COVID. And we became like really like connoisseurs of Virginia wine.
Everybody was just drinking during
COVID. Yes, but when we wanted to get out of the house, because Virginia has a very thriving wine industry here, so we got familiarized with that, and then I had friends that owned a winery, and so like I started leaning into learning more about wine, and so I'm listening to this conversation, and they're talking about like Shiraz and something else, and I'm thinking to myself like, No. Like I was dying that I wanted to jump into the conversation about Reds and regions and like terroir and certain things. And I was like dying because I had nobody to talk to about it. So I was texting my husband, who's normally asleep, but he was awake because he was
I was
watching
like,
the
so
show.
you didn't interrupt their date.
These guys are on a date next to me. They're talking about wine and they're talking about like Shiraz. Nobody talks about that. So then I'm like, I really wanted to interject. He goes, please don't. He's like, please don't. I said, okay, fine, I won't. So then I couldn't help it anymore. And I started talking to the bartender about it. I was like cracking a joke because he made me this really good drink and it was pretty strong. Anyway, we started talking. Super nice guy. His name is Christian. And the CNN folks, I guess, come over there all the time because it's like right across the street from the studio. And then Peter Meyer was there, who was on the panel with me last night. And, I gave Peter Meyer the business a little bit because even though he was one of the Republicans who actually voted to impeach Donald Trump, he actually did the right thing. He lost his congressional seat as a result of it. And he's been a little bitter about it since. So he kind of walks the line a little bit because sometimes, they can't quit it. They just can't quit. They just can't quit the Republican, and but he's actually not a bad guy. And so we ended up talking for a while last night about some stuff. And so anyway, it ended up turning into a later night than it was supposed to be. And I didn't go to bed till 2:00 and I had to catch my train at 7:30. So because I wanted to get I wanted to get the hell out of New York before it got hot, because I know as a seasoned Amtrak person, the rails get hot, things blow out. Like a couple years ago, I got stuck in Philadelphia in 100-degree heat because something went wrong with the damn trains, and I ended up sharing a rent-a-car with a stranger, a passenger on the train with me, who was like a Hill staffer also.
Tara, this story has taken 7 turns.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like that's what that was my 24 hours.
I'm tired.
I know, I'm tired.
7 lives.
I mean, this is why, because Val, you're like, are you all right? I'm like, I'm just tired. And it's hot as hell. But anyway, so that's what's been going on. It was interesting. It's just interesting. But anyway, anywho, I did not, just so everybody knows, I did not interject into their conversation about wine. I directed it to the bartender.
It was just passive aggressive instead.
Yes. But it worked itself out because he was really nice. And he was telling me about his girlfriend who's a writer, and he also does music, and he produces EDM. And I like house music and EDM. So he's like, we're like buddies on Instagram now. And I'm like, let me know next time you're spinning, because next time I'm in New York, I'll go to one of his sets.
Yeah.
It worked itself out.
You love that? That's such a New York thing.
I know, I made a friend.
That happened to me in Paris. I went by myself to Paris for like 9 days. And by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, I have so many friends.
Yes. I went to Italy by myself for 10 days and it was great. I was never alone long.
You should travel alone.
Everyone should travel alone at least once in their lives. It's glorious.
But speaking of you traveling alone, you went somewhere yesterday that ended up being our bright spot.
Yes.
Where did you go?
So yesterday I was supposed to have a meeting. It got canceled. So my mom was like, you know what? You should just go get on a boat. You're not that far. And I was like, that's true. And I hadn't done one of those sightseeing boat tours of Manhattan in about 10 years. My husband and I did this for my birthday in 2016 and we had a blast. I mean, it's never a bad time because New York is so beautiful, and especially from the water, you get to see both Jersey and New York on the Hudson River side of things. So of course I was happy about that. So I said, to hell with it. I literally booked a 90-minute sightseeing tour from Pier 78. It was only 4 blocks from my hotel. And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, because we're approaching America 250 and there's just so much going on, and just the awful rhetoric coming out of this administration, their attack on immigrants again, and passing the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, and just all of it. I said this on CNN last night, it brought me to tears. I was totally emotional about the whole thing. And part of that also kind of dovetails into what's happening with me personally and my family and our family property in New Jersey, because my great-grandparents came through Ellis Island. My German great-grandparents, they came through Ellis Island in 1924 to escape Germany. They were German Jews, and it was time for them to go because the brown shirts were trying to recruit my grandfather's brother, my great uncle Max, when he was 10. And I was just looking, and there was, and the people on the boat, it was a diverse crowd on the boat because there's a lot of people in town for the World Cup. So there were a lot of tourists there, and I was just watching, and I was just sitting there. It was a beautiful day. It was hot, but it was beautiful in the water. And I was just looking at this and listening to the tour guide talk about Ellis Island and talk about the Statue of Liberty and how it was a gift from France, and how, you know, the shackles of the bottom of the feet represent the abolition of slavery, and and how welcoming we were in our relationship with our European allies. And then my bright spot, I didn't know when I was that I was going to do this, because I told you it was impromptu yesterday. And my bright spot in the newsletter was about how France was actually, they had these trains where they were providing gifts to thank the Americans for liberating France from the Nazis in World War II. And they have, as a gift to America 250, they are resurrecting the train again, which I thought was really cool. And so it all kind of tied together. But like my trip yesterday, so that's the bright spot. So, you know, it's important for us to remember who our allies are, and also just to embrace what makes America great, and not let them change the definition of America. Be reminded of Emma Lazarus's poem about, you know, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. Like, that's what it's about. And it brought me to another thing, which is, just as we close tonight, many of you who follow me on social media know that I have put up a GoFundMe because of what's happening with my family and our family property that's been in my family for 100 years, and State Farm not doing the right thing. And this is part of what I often talk about my grandfather, and I talk about my background, and I talk about how important those things are, you know, how important Jersey is for me. And that property is our legacy. I don't have children. So it's like the Setmayer name and legacy is in that property. And it's part of the American dream. You know, it's just like how many other people's families came over here with nothing and made a life for themselves. And then their children and their children's children are doing what they're doing, right? Generationally. And to think that could be lost because a multi-billion-dollar freaking insurance company is doing the wrong thing and delaying and, you know, underpaying and just they're just awful. State Farm is not a good neighbor. They are terrible. And, you know, it was bad enough that we lost everything in the house. The water damage was so bad that we lost everything, family heirlooms, and just like it's just been a nightmare. My poor mom and her health, it's impacted that. It's just been terrible. So we're at the point now where we're up against some hard deadlines. And it has completely bankrupted our family. Like, it is really drained our finances, and we have to ask for help in order to get legal counsel, secure legal counsel, so we can sue State Farm for what they've done to us, and also just to help with the expenses of all of this. It's been going on for over a year. Yeah. And so if you can help, thank you to everyone who has donated so far. The response has been really, really humbling and really overwhelming so far. We're about a quarter of our way to the goal, and it's only been less than a week. Actually 1 week. 1 week ago, I put it up. Jim Acosta did that. Yeah, there's the QR code.
The QR code right here.
Oh, that's cool. That's fancy. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for the people who are fancy, not the boomers like my mom who can't figure stuff like that out, but if you're fancy and you know, and you can do the scanning, I bust my mom's probably watching now and she's laughing because she knows I'm right. But no, thank you to everyone who has donated so far. One of our Seneca supporters, Eric Huddleston, thank you so much. He was really generous. He is our largest donor and largest Seneca donor, and also the largest donor to my GoFundMe. I cannot thank him enough for his generosity and support. But every little bit matters.
I want to interject really quickly because I tried to put it in the comments and something's going funky, so I don't know if it made it. But the link to the GoFundMe should be in the comments. But if it's not, it's very simple to just literally Google Tara Setmayer GoFundMe. It's the first thing that pops up. It should show up for you. So if you don't see it across any one of our platforms, which it has been shared on, then you can just Google her name and GoFundMe. It'll come right up.
Because there's only one Tara Setmayer. So it makes it easy.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, trust me. But I made a promise to my grandfather that, and I wrote this on my Substack for people who are watching on Substack. They know the story, but I wrote a long a long piece in Substack about this and how hard it is for me to ask for help. It's not easy. And no, I don't make millions of dollars. No, I'm not paid on when I'm on television. It's a struggle every single day. And, I walked away from an organization and a very lucrative situation to start Seneca on principle, and it was the right thing to do. And I don't regret that decision, but it has been hard, and you pay a price for having integrity. And so for me to have to ask for help now, listen, it's not easy. I never thought I'd have to write it, but I promised my grandfather before he died at 90 in 2016 that we would never sell our property, and we wouldn't, we would be good stewards of it. And to think that I may not be able to fulfill that promise to him is like unimaginable for me. It's just unimaginable. And 4th of July, like I said in the beginning of the show, is something that's so near and dear. And my grandfather literally was wheeled down the 4th of July parade because he was not going to miss it at 90 and pass away 10 days later. Like, that is something that I hold on to, and I have to keep my promise. I have to keep my promise to him, but it takes a village. It takes a village. So,
it does.
So there it is. So everyone, that's the picture right there is from my grandfather's last 4th of July parade. So there it is. So thank you, everyone.
I know that he's looking down, quite proud of all of the work you've done to fight for democracy.
I hope so.
And with that,
all right. Yeah.
Let's remember Doug's words, right? This weekend might feel heavy for some folks. I think in our household, it's kind of interesting because we're our military family.
Yeah.
An active one at that.
Mm-hmm.
But this weekend is a recommitment to our democracy and to each other, that there is work to be done. The most committed wins. And we never back down from a fight.
No, we don't. Which is why also we are running America is Watching again this weekend during the 4th of July debacle on the mall. But it will be out there. The people who are stuck standing in that heat are going to be on their phones because they can't sit down or bring a cooler with them
or drink any water.
So before they pass out, hopefully they'll see our ad.
They absolutely will.
They will.
That's a good thing for us to go out on, huh?
Yes.
Without further ado, happy 4th of July.
Yes.
America is watching.
Indeed.
I was 17 years old.
Me at 14. I was only 14.
There are 1,000 of us. It was full-blown sexual abuse.
The whole thing is a hoax.
I believe he's trying to protect friends and donors.
Jeffrey Epstein was not a pedophile. He liked 15-year-old girls.
I am traumatized. I am not stupid. Our voices are real.